Hey, what's up, everybody? So I know a lot of the videos that I've been posting have been about the calls that I've been making and like to agents and all that. But I kind of wanted today just to go over like a deal that I recently closed on last week and kind of tell you guys about the story, how the whole process went, and what that deal ended up looking like, and how long it actually took to get the deal done. So there was a property out in Texas. It's a 3206 Sunny Knoll Court. It's in Humble, Texas, and this was a lead that I had, and I called the agent on it. Her name is Cindy. I called the agent on it at first, like just initially reaching out about it and seeing if, obviously they were open to terms, basically doing a subject to on the property. And at first, the whole thing was they weren't interested in they weren't interested in doing subject to, or the sellers weren't interested at that time. And so as kind of time went on, I obviously followed up with the agent again. Later on down the line, I think I called her back, like, I don't know, maybe it was a month later or something, just because they weren't interested. The house still hadn't sold. Called her back again, and it was just like, hey, just wanted to check in, what's going on with the property, wanted to see if we could still potentially make something happen here. And then on that second call, when I called her back, she's like, yeah, they're interested. I think that this might work. So at this point, the property had already been on the market for like over 80 days. The sellers were separating, so it was kind of a tougher situation. So I was like, okay, yeah, I think we can make something work. Come to find out, I'm like, okay, send me over the statement, everything else, all the other information that I needed all looked good. And then come to find out, there was arrears on the property. There was about $45,000 in arrears. So meaning that they were behind on payments. They did during 2020, a COVID relief program, and the lender just is basically putting that money on the back end of the loan. So it's still owed, but they just put it on the back end of the loan. And so when I found out that those were the arrears, I was like, okay, I think we can still make this happen, even though they're separating. We'll still come in, take over the payment, the current payment on the house, and then we'll also take over that $45,000 COVID relief, as like a second loan, basically. So the first underlying loan was $270,000, and then the COVID relief, or the arrears in this case, were $45,000. So basically taking over a total of $315,000 on this property. And so I was like, okay, we can do this, but I think what we're gonna have to do is, well, originally we were gonna have to try to get those arrears put on the back end of the loan, because otherwise, a buyer would have to come into this property with $45,000, and plus if I were to assign it to a buyer, then plus an assignment fee. So it just made the entry into the deal very high, even though they were taking over a pretty decent payment. And so for it to make sense for anybody, it would have, we were like, okay, we need to put the $45,000 on the back end of the loan for this whole deal to make sense and to be able to sell to a buyer. So we were able to get the $45,000 on the back end of the loan at the end of the day. But I guess let me back up from there, because when originally I said, yeah, this deal, like, hey, I think we can still make it work, even though they're separating, like, they're not going to have anything to do with each other. Like, we'll be responsible for the payments. They won't have to contact each other, just because, in this situation, they really didn't get along anymore, and, weren't talking to each other. And so, that was one main concern that they were really worried about. And, that was overcame. And so I ended up sending out the contract to the agent. I was like, hey, I can still get you paid in this transaction, and I can still potentially get the sellers some money in their pocket if, we can get those arrears put on the back end of the loan. So I sent out the contract, and the agent was friends with the wife, in this case. And so the wife had signed the contract already. And I kept following up with the agent, being like, hey, like, we need both signatures. Are you going to be able to get the other one? And nothing had come of it. Like, she couldn't get the husband to sign the contract. And so I kind of like moved, like, I just left it out there, and I kept following up with her, and this took probably, I would say, over a month for even just to get the husband to sign. But come to find out, the husband was working with another buyer, on his own, not through the agent. And so he wanted to go with that buyer. And then I went directly to the agent, and I was talking with the agent in this case about the property. And so that created like, he was like, okay, I want to go with this buyer. And then, but I was already with the agent. And so, he didn't want to sign the contract that his wife had already signed. And then I was able just to get on a phone call with him and talk to him and be like, hey, look, this is what we're doing. Get everybody on the same page here. As far as like us taking over the payments, taking care of the arrears, and then putting a little bit of money in his pocket and in her pocket, and then also paying the agent. So just saying like, hey, look, you're not gonna have to come out of pocket any money on this deal. So at the end of the day, it took quite a while. I would say in total this whole deal probably took about like 3 months to get completed from start to finish, just because there were a lot of moving parts. We had to wait for to get the arrears put on the back end of the loan. Had a tough time getting both sellers on the same page and on board, since they weren't really talking with each other. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how this whole deal went. So it was, took over the payments of 270,000, arrears of 45, and then got the sellers a couple grand in their pocket each, and then got the agent paid as well in this deal. And the agent was just very thankful. Like, she was like, hey, this listing like was about to expire, there were no other options for them, there's nothing else that I could do, and like a traditional offer just wasn't going to work, because they needed a certain number with the arrears, and the house did need a little bit of work, and I guess other buyers traditionally just didn't see that value in the property of what was needed. Otherwise, they would have to cut a check, and the sellers were already in a situation where it was tough. They couldn't just come out of pocket any money and just be like, okay, yeah, I can take a lower price. So in this case, instead of just letting it go to foreclosure and the listing expired, I was able to come in, we took over those payments, took care of the arrears, still got the agent paid and got the sellers paid. So I would say some of the main lessons that I really learned from this was like, it's really all about the follow-up. It's being consistent in that. It's building the relationship with the agent, like answering any questions they have, being 100% transparent with the sellers. Like, I talked with them and I was like, hey, if we need to get on a 3-way call with you and the agent, like, because I didn't want the agent to be excluded from any of these conversations either. I was just like, we can get on 3-way calls and we can all discuss this together. That was a major lesson I learned. And then another one was just that, like, one thing that was awesome, I was like, man, I was able to help out a seller in a tough situation, and they're both able to move on with their lives or wherever they were going to next. Like, otherwise they would have had for this foreclosure mark carried with them, and it would have been harder for them to get qualified for another house later down the line. And so it was just really like a humbling experience. I think the best part, like, aside from I didn't even make that much money on this deal. At the end of the day, I just wanted to get it done for the agent and get it done for the sellers, and it was just more satisfying helping them out in this situation. But yeah, that's the deal breakdown of that one. I'd love to hear your guys' comments or questions that you have. Definitely, leave a comment of your questions that you have, and I'll try to get back to you and answer them. And let me know if you like these deal breakdown videos. I can definitely do more of them when more deals close and kind of tell you how they went. They're not all, tough situations like this, but this one was just a good one I wanted to share, just because, like I said, it was a tough situation. Had arrears, were able to put them on the back end of the loan, and it was just like, a traditional offer wasn't working, so the creative option was their best route. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys and let you know that it's possible, even on properties that have arrears, instead of doing like a short sale or something like that, that we can still come in, take over those payments, and take care of the arrears as well. So let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, definitely please give it a like, leave me a comment, and thanks guys. Catch you next time.